In today's episode, we interview Hilton Head Health's Executive Chef Thomas Carrig, and he's got a lot of great tips. He talks about how to make eating plant foods more enjoyable, more satisfying, the tips and tricks of using seasonings and sauces, how to make your own, and how to pick the right ones at the grocery store that are on the healthier and flavorful end. He shares, entry-level tools for the kitchen and how to make the kitchen more inviting and less scary for those who are intimidated with cooking and cooking healthy. So a lot of really great takeaways from this episode. I hope you enjoy it. Stick around to the end so you don't miss any of it. Hey there, David Chesworth coming to you from Hilton Head Health on the beautiful Hilton Head Island, coming to you with another Health Talk episode. Today we have a super exciting guest, the Executive Chef of Hilton Head Health himself, Thomas Carrig. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Hey, no problem. Super happy to have you. I think, one of the challenges that a lot of our guests and listeners have back home is making eating healthy exciting. And, I feel like that's kind of your specialty, is making healthy eating taste good.
Yeah.
And then also making healthy eating easier for
Yeah.
people. So, my first question for you is actually about you, because you haven't always been a chef. You had another career before this.
I did.
You were a chemist.
Yes.
So how and when did you go from chemist to executive chef?
I guess the exact moment of change would be when I was 44.
Okay.
I went to culinary
So last
school.
year.
Yeah. Thanks. I cooked my whole life. I was thinking about this before we came today, and I actually remember the first dish I ever created.
Really?
It was diced green peppers with apple cider vinegar and salt and pepper. I made that. I was like 9 or 10 years old. So I always had a knack for the kitchen. But I remember making that, feeling so proud and good, and sitting there eating my green peppers. And
That sounds really good.
Weird memory, but so I learned to cook when I was young, cultivated that as I grew up. I kind of say I went to college to play football and ended up leaving with a chemistry degree. So
you played collegiate level football?
I did.
Very cool.
Division III.
Nice.
Yeah.
What was your position?
Nose guard.
Oh, cool.
I got beat up a lot. I had a short career.
Yeah. So you're like, all right, I'll do this chemist thing.
Yeah. Well, actually, I wasn't planning on going to college, so it's kind of an accident.
Oh.
But
It was all football that got you in.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, my football coach got me.
Cool.
Sent me to college. So I got there, and everybody told me, like I said, I wasn't planning on it. Didn't have all these lofty ambitions as a teenager. And everybody said, you got good grades, you're good at science, be a mechanical engineer. That's where all the money is. So I said, oh, okay. So I went, my major was mechanical engineering. In high school chemistry, I did not do well. And I attribute that at this point in life to my older brothers and sister. We all had the same teacher, and she hated all of them. So from day one of me walking in that class.
They're carrying.
Yeah. So me and chemistry didn't get along. And then in college, I took Chem 101 for engineering. It's like, oh, this is awesome. So I changed my major, took chemistry. I graduated and went on to kind of stumbled in by, so many things happen by accident in life. It's kind of weird. Just applied to all these jobs and got a job as a lab tech for a company that made polymer adhesive films in the Boston area. I was like, great, I got friends in Boston. I'll do that. So ended up falling in love with that. It was challenging. They made custom products for industrial applications, airplanes, cars, garments, all kinds of stuff. So it was problem solving. They say, we need to stick this stuff to this stuff. There's nothing we can find that does it. So please make something that sticks these two things together. So it was, solving puzzles and doing that. And I got really good at assisting salespeople with sales and traveling a lot, and kind of moved up the ladder and switched over to another company that did even more specialty stuff. So did the adhesive chemistry thing for 20 plus years. Loved it. Had a good run at it. Got to a point where we had a change in leadership, and my future wasn't looking as bright as it was a year ago. At that point. And I talked to my wife and said, maybe we just go to a different company and I'll work for a competitor. And interviewed, nothing was really appealing to me. And finally said, go to cooking school. What do you think? And we didn't have kids, and we had done quite well in our careers. And she said, yeah, let's do it. So we packed up. We were living in South Central Pennsylvania at the time, a little town called Glen Rock. And we packed up and moved to Charlotte. I looked at the CIA, looked at some local culinary schools, looked at CIA, looked at Johnson & Wales. And Johnson & Wales had a program in culinary nutrition. And I just looked at the content of what it was offering. Like, as a scientist, I'm like, yeah, that's where I'm at. 'Cause throughout my life, I kept evolving my cooking and getting better and better. And like a dinner party, getting invited to dinner at my house was a cool thing for my colleagues at work. Like, oh, you get to eat it. Everybody's like, you should be a chef. You should be a chef. I'm like, nah, it won't be fun anymore.
Yeah.
So, so I decided to do it. And a couple of things happened along the way that are worth mentioning. One is that my explorations into food and cooking changed probably when I was in my 30s. So I started looking at things that were more healthy. Started to read books that were not just recipe books, which I had tons of. I started reading more about food and culture and the food chain. And I think a book that changed my life in a way, I guess, is Fast Food Nation by Eric Schlosser. And I read that, and I got really mad that our food chain was being that manipulated, and like we didn't know it. I didn't know it. And I had been cooking all this time and really into food, and I didn't know all the stuff that was going on, the way the cattle's raised and the additives that are added to food that you don't really hear about. And it just upset me, and it planted seeds. So this was before I'd made the change. So I started reading more books like that, Michael Pollan books, and getting more and more kind of angry about it. And so that kind of pushed me to make that move to go to culinary school. Like, you know, if I can like help fix some things from the inside, I can do that. And it might often overused thing, like if I can help one person eat better, that's a good day. So I went into it with that attitude. I want to learn everything about food, from seeds in the ground to when we go to the bathroom. So how everything's raised. Yeah. And to this day, I joke with other chefs when we sit down and have a beer and talk about our jobs. I said, your job is done when they take that spoon or fork, put it in their mouth, and go, oh, that's good. You know, I'm done. For me, I'm only halfway done, because it's still got to go through all this. It's got to feed those cells. It's got to nourish the body. And I want to make sure that's happening. So that's just half of the battle is that, ooh, that's good. But it's a big part of it, too. So it's got to taste good.
Right. That's the gateway to...
But yeah, so I got into Johnson & Wales. I love that program. And that's how I got into cooking from chemistry.
Wow. So ever since you were 9, you always liked food.
Oh, yeah.
Then,
I was a great eater.
Yeah.
Great eater.
Then you were a great athlete. That's what got you to go to school.
Yeah, I was a good athlete.
You were good enough. Not good enough to continue after college, but good enough to get you in college. And actually, you mentioned something interesting about your high school chemistry teacher made you think that you hated chemistry.
Yeah.
And your college chemistry teacher is what made you fall in love with chemistry.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that you actually...
Professor Werner.
Yeah, oh, great shout out. Yeah. But I also think that you actually are an example of a passionate, good culinary nutrition teacher to our guests who come through the door, because there's so many guests, I'm sure you've heard this, who just assume that eating healthy is boring, not good, not exciting. But the way that you teach and present it, I hear so many of our guests say, wow, like I'm satisfied with less food than I thought. It tastes so much better than I ever thought. So, you know, I think that you are carrying on that legacy of that professor, but in
never thought of it that way.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool.
Pretty cool,
Thanks.
And then you had this epiphany in your 30s about, you know, the food industry and how it's not really promoting health and wellness, and you wanted to be, you know, when you hit that point of career change, you wanted to become a force for good in nutrition. Yeah. Taking with your culinary skills. Yeah. Very cool. So, you know, I actually didn't know this about you until I looked at our own website and saw that you have this other credential, nutrition and dietetic technician.
Yes.
What is the difference between that and a registered dietitian?
Well, they can do some things that are similar. But a registered dietitian has to do a lot more clinical work to gain that credential.
Okay.
So, by just my education, it was an accredited bachelor's degree in nutrition, culinary nutrition. and it had all of the elements of a bachelor's degree in dietetics. So it had biochemistry, anatomy, physiology, all that good stuff that you need for the science. But it was done through the lens of food, which is very unique. So by that credential, and that I earned my credential, it was again a happy accident. So the same year I graduated with my bachelor's degree, it was then the American Academy of Dietetics, American Dietetic Association. That's what it is. Now they're Academy on Nutrition and Dietetics. But that year that I graduated, they had two pathways to become a nutrition dietetic technician, and they added a third. So the other two involved an associate's degree in dietetics and an internship. And the third was just an accredited bachelor's degree. So the woman who ran our program said, hey, you can sit and get this credential. Just take the exam. I'm like, oh, cool. So I paid my money, took the test, and passed.
Cool.
So, and the only reason I was never interested in the clinical side. I have done a little bit of the clinical work after getting the credential, and I didn't like it. But so after the bachelor's degree, to become a dietitian, which a lot of people in that program choose to do, you have to do it. I think it's 9 months, might even be a year of a clinical internship. It's quite challenging. But at that point, so I went back to college when I was 44, did the bachelor's program. So it was 3 years because I had a lot of credits to transfer, even though they're 20-something years old, which was nice. So that was another 3 years. I was like, I'm not spending another year to get a clinical credential, which that's not where my passion is. My passion is the food, but I wanted the nutrition knowledge.
Yeah.
So I sat for the exam and I got it. And the only reason I did that is, as I like to say, it let me in the club. So I was able to network with dietitians. And,
very cool.
Yeah. So wherever I go, this is the first place I've lived since that where I haven't been really involved with the local dietetics community, because I don't know that there's just that many here. But certainly when I was in Charlotte, they had a very active Charlotte Dietetic Association, and I became a board member of that group, even though I was a dietetic tech. And but yeah, I liked working with dietitians. I don't want to be one, but I enjoy being able to speak the same language. So I can do nutrition consults and things like that, but I'd much rather leave that to the hands of somebody like Liz Huggins.
So you have a really strong foundation of nutrition with that, and you can guide people, but you are not prescribing things like a dietitian.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
That makes sense.
Yes.
So you mentioned earlier that your job is only half finished when they take a bite of that food and say, that's good. The other half is that it actually provides nutritional value to them. So what is your approach then to healthy cooking? How do you accomplish that second half?
Well, I felt for years, especially after reading a lot of the books I've read, that our bodies have not evolved at the same rate as our minds.
Our advancements,
our technologies, and so our cells in our body are still looking for those same nutrients that they were a couple hundred years ago. So when we ingest something, we digest it, it tears it apart, it goes through our system, and our cells are looking for the stuff that isn't there, and it's seeing a lot of stuff that's like, I don't know what to do with that. So it's going back to basics. So fresh fruit and vegetables, unprocessed stuff that isn't diddled with and have the nutrition removed, like white flour and all that stuff. And so just whole foods is what you have to start with. And to make it taste great takes some work, for sure. But also a big part of that is high quality ingredients to start with. So fresh, from really good suppliers, good farmers, and you have to have that foundation. So, as I tell people in our lectures, garbage in, garbage out. You can't make a healthy, nutritious meal when you're starting with junk. You have to start with the good stuff.
And the good stuff is whole foods first.
Yes, absolutely.
And if you have the opportunity to get them freshly, locally grown, that's a plus, a big plus.
Yes.
So, one thing that it seems kind of back and forth, like some guests that I talk to, seem to already like vegetables, and then others seem to just, they hear the word vegetable and they assume bad.
Yeah.
In terms of flavor and taste.
Yeah.
Do you have like an easy go-to example recipe that you found is a good gateway for the guests who think they don't like vegetables?
I can answer that in a couple ways.
Okay.
One is I like to enlighten people into the world of seasoning.
Okay.
We that's something we don't do as home cooks. It's done a lot in restaurants, and a lot of restaurants do it with the wrong stuff, which is salt and fat, and they cheat to make things taste good. But I like to show people spice blends that we make. We buy some and we make some. But you can take, and I do this in one of the demos, you take the same pile of vegetables, season them up 5 different ways, and they taste completely different.
That's a pretty cool demo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the seasoning makes all the difference in the world. The other way, I like to show people that you can do a lot more with actually all our healthy stuff. So it applies to vegetables, it applies to beans, applies to grains. You don't just cook them and put them on a plate. You can do stuff with them. And it's a game changer. So the simplest one I do for people, and it blows them away, is I take a zucchini, cut it in half, put it on a sheet pan, roast it until a knife goes right through it. It's totally soft.
Yeah.
You take that, you put it in a blender and puree it. Maybe add a little veggie broth, maybe not. And it's a sauce.
That's it.
It's got a beautiful color. It's got that, because I keep the skin on because all the nutrition is in the skin. Yeah. You can put it over whole wheat noodles. You can toss it with other roasted vegetables. And it works for red peppers. Just about any vegetable, you can cook it until it's soft and make a sauce out of it.
And that's a way to get a vegetable in your dish. Yeah. Is use that veggie as a sauce on top of your noodles or beans.
Yeah. One of my proudest dishes at H3 that I did, and it was a real challenge, but we wanted to do a healthy version of steak à pois. And the sauce for steak à pois it's basically cream and cognac. And it's like, well, how do we make something that tastes like that and make it healthy? And we had a lot of failure. It took a long time.
So what's the secret?
It's a happy accident.
Happy accident. I feel like that's a theme in your life.
Yeah.
A series of happy accidents.
Yeah. There's a joke in there, but I'm not going to say it. Roasted shallots.
Okay. Oh.
Take shallots and roast them until they're almost caramelized. Not quite. You don't want them too dark, but really soft. You puree them. And I did that for something else and tasted it. And I'm like, oh, I can add a little skim milk and a little bit of cognac. And I got my sauce. See, and you get just that little touch of cognac and a little bit of dairy. Yeah, and it's a great sauce. To this day, it's a very popular dish at H3.
Very cool.
Steak à pois.
Yeah, I feel like your scientist is now just in the kitchen. I get to see your beakers filled with different chemicals, mixing things, trying to find the right solution.
Well, and therein lies another interesting motivation that drove me into cooking, which I forgot to mention. So in my research and development in adhesives, I discovered that food companies were buying materials and equipment from the same people that we were.
Really? The adhesive company?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And putting those things in the food?
Food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of frightening.
Yeah. So that was another, I want to be a force for health.
Yes.
Yeah. So you mentioned some seasonings that you make at H3. Are there any just like off-the-shelf common seasonings that you think could accomplish a similar job?
Oh, yeah.
What are some examples?
Openly tell people that. You don't have to do our stuff. You can buy them. And open examples. Well, there's one company out of Asheville. I don't know if I can promote brands, but they do, Spice Wallet does a lot of great spice blends. Okay. And you can get them online. There's other spice companies out there. Their names escape me right now because I went into the Spice Wallet thing. But
Spice Wallet's a good one, all right?
Yeah. They're out of Asheville, North Carolina.
And they make a variety of spices.
They make good quality spices. They make a lot of different blends. Okay. So they do one that's a Modena balsamic rub. So it's essentially centrifuge dried vinegar with some other seasonings. And it's really good.
Wow.
Yeah. So from my original, another approach to cooking, my original creation dish of green peppers and vinegar. I love acidic flair in food.
Gotcha.
So I love that vinegar rub is like, ooh.
Adds a nice
Still got the acid
touch to it.
Yeah.
Very cool. And then what about just like, you go to your local Kroger, your local grocery store in the seasoning aisle. If like you were to recommend 2 or 3 seasonings, what would they be?
Probably cumin, coriander, and curry powder.
Okay. And then would you blend
which is a blend.
Okay.
Usually, yeah. No, I just think they add interesting flavors. I don't think you can add too much cumin to food. It's a great spice that's not used a lot outside of Mexican cuisine, but it adds a lot of depth to all kinds of dishes. When I talked about doing things with vegetables, I like doing things with beans and making bean burgers and stuff out of beans. And I almost always include cumin in those things. And coriander is another one. I don't know if you've had, I'm trying to think of the name of cereal, Trix. When I was young, yeah. And when I smell coriander, it reminds me of that cereal for some reason.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So
come in the kitchen, take a whiff sometime, and go, oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's like Trix cereal.
Yeah. Tricks are for kids.
Tricks are for kids. Yeah. That's great. So you mentioned that some of your time at Hilton Head Health is spent trying to create new flavors and recipes, or mimic maybe an traditionally unhealthy food and make it healthy, but mimic the flavors as much as possible. So how much really goes into developing a new menu at Hilton Head? I mean, I feel like you're always innovating, you're always making new things as a team, and you're always busy, for sure. So what goes into making a menu, and how has that evolved since your time being here?
Well, I'll have to separate that into developing a menu and developing recipes.
Okay.
Because they're a little bit different. Yes.
Okay.
So recipes we kind of do to support a menu concept. But we got into the menu development has changed a lot in my 6 years here. When I first started as the sous chef in True Dining, we had a menu that changed once a quarter and a daily special. And then we went through, a lot of it changed during COVID.
Okay.
So we started doing more frequent changes of the menu.
So does that mean that COVID kind of gave you the space and time to make further advancements on the menu because we were slower with our guest count? Or is that what okay.
It allowed for a lot more flexibility.
Gotcha. With
changing the menu more often. And I wasn't involved in the decision making at that time to do
Another happy accident from COVID.
I don't know how happy it was.
Fair enough. An unexpected.
But so at one point I think we were even changing the menu daily, and then it was every other day, and now we're at then it was twice a week, and we veered off into these ethnic themed menus, which didn't go over well.
It wasn't received well.
No.
Yeah.
No, because if you didn't like that particular cuisine, you're out of luck for 3-4 days. So
yeah.
We got some negative feedback on that. So where we're at right now is, I'm a scientist guy, right?
Yeah.
So I like grids. So I made a grid. So what we're doing now is we have it's a bigger menu, and it's not themed, but it offers a nice variety of just a lot of different stuff on there. Almost anybody can find something they like. The other thing that changed is we used to have a separate lunch and dinner menu, and now it's just one menu for lunch and dinner.
But there's enough variety.
So we have something sandwichy type of thing, at least one, sometimes two. I like to have cold things off the salad station. So the grid that I made is we have we put a lot more emphasis on plant-based. So we have no more appetizers that are meat-based.
Okay.
All plant-based appetizers.
Cool.
They might not be vegan, but they're at least vegetarian.
At least
But
vegetarian.
I try to keep them vegan when I can. So all our apps are that. So every menu cycle is going to have, for a month, it's going to have plant-based, poultry, seafood.
Mm-hmm.
And then twice a week, we change another plant-based, poultry, seafood, red meat.
So the
there's
main
only
dishes
one red
rotate.
meat
Okay.
and two of everything else. So we're trying to emphasize the use of red meat a little less. So it changes twice a week still, but there's consistency there. So what that's done is, if you're there for an extended time, you get nice change, nice variety. But the ones that we keep on for a month they're solid dishes. I mean, people like them.
Yeah.
And so nobody gets sick of them, and everybody gets a look at them over the course of a month. And when those go away and we replace them with another set of monthly ones, they'll still come back as specials.
Okay.
So we keep a lot of rotation there. But again, it's more these days. The big change lately has been more plant-based.
Gotcha.
And we're trying to up that game. So instead of just saying, well, let's replace chicken with tofu, which a lot of that went on, we're now developing real elegant plant-based dishes, and not
just
off
like meat replacement.
Yeah.
Items,
So I mean, not to get off on too much of a sidetrack, but it's a podcast, so we can talk about other podcasts.
Yeah.
But I listened to one with a chef called Daniel Hume,
Uh-huh.
and he's the executive chef owner of 11 Madison Park in Manhattan, and it was a great interview, and it just blew my mind in so many ways. It really made me think a lot. But he closed that restaurant for COVID, and he did a lot of introspection, and he looked at his relationship to food and cooking and the planet Earth and our health, and reopened. And this is a guy with Michelin stars, which you don't diddle around with things when you got Michelin stars. He changed his entire menu to be 100% plant-based.
Wow.
When they reopened. Yeah. So I keep looking online to get reservations, and I can't. So that's a good sign.
Yeah.
So,
wow, must be good food.
Well, and just the way he talked about, you can make plant-based foods that are beautiful and delicious. And I believe that.
Yeah.
And
you execute that.
Yeah. And I talk to kids at Johnson Wales when I go on recruiting trips and all that, and when they talk about what we do at Hilton Head Health and why it's a great experience to come here as an intern, I say you can train a monkey to cook a ribeye. You can. I mean, it's not hard.
Yeah.
But if you could take a handful of lentils and turn that into a fabulous meal, it's like, man, now you're cooking.
No, that's a skill.
This is where it's at.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I asked that question because, I think, sometimes the guests who come through maybe don't always realize how much is constantly going into the menu. And I think it's really cool to see constant innovation from you guys and back there. And it sounds like the place that we're at now is we've got a foundation of items that are popular and that don't rotate quite as often. And then we also have multiple items that rotate every few days.
Yeah.
And so it's very personalized, customizable, options for variety and options for comfort.
Yes.
Or the same. So it's
here's another thing about that. So I would get feedback from guests that were looking for certain dishes, and I have just become in charge of the menus basically. Even though I oversaw a lot of things, I wasn't doing hands-on menu stuff. So now that I am, when I hear people say, boy, last time I was here, we had the meatloaf, and it was fantastic, and other guests will say, oh, I'd love to try that. Yeah. I'll put it on a Friday. Yeah.
Okay.
So I can turn on a dime like that.
Very cool.
And I've been doing that. And
let's try it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you are very receptive to feedback.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah, we read those comments the surveys every Monday, and I pay attention. I'm like, oh, okay, man, that's something we might have to change.
Yeah, very cool. Any exciting new developments on the horizon that you are able to share with our menu?
Well, again, it's more plant-based things. I have a whole list of things, and actually today and tomorrow. One of the things I'm going to hopefully nail down today is a vegetable cannelloni. So we serve crepes for breakfast, and they're on the sweet side. There's agave nectar in it. So I'm going to make it more savory and use basically the same recipe, but modify it. And it's taking a lot of things, pieces we already have in place. So it's taking roast some vegetables, beautiful colors, red peppers, yellow peppers, and asparagus, and make a nice savory crepe that's plant-based. We have a really nice cashew ricotta cheese recipe. So I'm going to take the crepe, spread the ricotta cheese in there, put the veggies on it, roll it up. And I'll have to play with it to make sure we get a good level of protein and a good balanced meal. And serve that with some marinara. Maybe I'm thinking like a rosemary white bean puree.
Making me salivate over
Yeah. I think that has the potential to be a beautiful plate and really delicious. And say moving into these plant-based things, our guests sit at tables as groups, and if there's one, I think people would say, I don't want the plant-based, I want steak.
Yeah.
And if somebody orders at that table orders the vegetables cannelloni, and that plate comes out, and it's like, ooh, what's that? I have to try that.
Yeah, try that. Yeah.
So just get people to give it a whirl.
Yeah, very cool. So you meet with a lot of our guests. You do a lot of the cooking demos. What is one of the most common challenges you hear from our guests when they come to you?
I overcook fish. By far and away the number one.
Really? I overcook fish. Interesting.
I can't cook fish.
A specific kind of tilapia, salmon?
It doesn't matter.
Any fish?
Yeah, I dry it out. I can't cook fish.
Wow. So what's the secret with fish?
I pull out the meat thermometer. I say, you buy one of these. You take the temperature of the fish. You stop cooking it when it's at the right temperature.
Get a meat thermometer.
A meat thermometer, yes. And a good knife.
Yeah, and a good knife.
And we hand out, I have a chart that has the internal cooking temperatures for all proteins. And I say, take this, get a thermometer. You take a picture of mine, go online, order it. You'll be at your house when you get back.
Okay. So each fish has its own recommended temperature.
They're all pretty much the same, around 145.
Around 145.
Yeah, things like tuna, you like rare on the inside.
Yeah.
I like my salmon rare. And I tell people I like it at 120 degrees. You can cook it to 145 if you want, but I'm not eating it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
So on that sheet that you provide, is there like this is the temperature for rare, medium rare?
Yeah.
Okay,
for beef, yes.
For beef,
yeah.
Okay. And for you mentioned fish, like tuna.
Yeah.
Does that also have that?
No, it just says 145 for seafood.
Gotcha. Okay.
But, I mean, those are like the only two exceptions
Gotcha.
that I know of.
Gotcha.
And sushi grade stuff, which we don't dabble with.
Yeah. Okay, so wow. So you mentioned get a meat thermometer, get a knife. If someone's just getting started with cooking, they want to do well. Are there any other basic kitchen tools that?
Yeah, I have a whole list that we hand out.
Okay.
At the lecture of kitchen tools. It talks about what they are and what to look for when you're buying one.
Okay.
The only thing I would not even sweat about. The only thing I would really pay attention to is the knife.
The knife.
Yeah.
Number one thing.
Yep.
Knife and maybe a meat thermometer. You're good to go.
Any meat thermometer will work, but you want to put a little thought into your knife.
I experienced that personally when I finally did get a good knife. I'm like, I have been missing out. It makes cooking way more fun.
Yes, it does. Yeah, it does.
And nothing worse than a dull knife.
Yeah, and a good chef's knife, 8-inch chef's knife will do everything. You don't have to buy one of those big sets or anything. But $60 to $100 will get you a really good knife. High carbon steel, solid construction. You got to take care of it though. So you got to
sharpen it.
You got to hone it a lot. I hone the knives pretty much every day.
Okay.
So it's the steel. You might see if you have those.
What does hone it mean?
Well, if you have a wooden block, and it's got that thickness like a rod, metal rod, it's called a steel, and it's very abrasive, and that's what you hone your knife on.
Okay.
I could have brought my tools here.
What's the difference between honing and sharpening?
Honing, if you look at the edge of a knife with your naked eye, it looks smooth. Under a microscope, it's going to have little teeth like a saw. So when I'm cutting, I'm banging those teeth all around.
Yeah.
Honing aligns them straight down. So you rub it on that abrasive rod, and it keeps them pointing down, which keeps your knife sharp. Sharpening removes the metal. So you're taking some layers of metal right off.
Gotcha.
And giving a whole new edge on there. So that's the difference between honing and sharpening.
I didn't know that.
Most people don't.
Yeah.
You got to come hang out in the healthy kitchen a little more.
I really do. We need to come take our own classes. And you teach a class called Knife Skills.
Yes.
Yes. So
Yes,
I mean,
we do.
that's
A
great.
hands-on class, and
Yeah.
we put a knife in our hands of our guests, which can be kind of dangerous sometimes, but
On guard.
nobody's cut the finger off yet.
Not yet. Yeah. That's great. So earlier, we kind of already started talking about how you make comfort foods healthy, and you gave that steak example and how you figured out the onions and the uh, um,
Shallots.
and the shallots
Yeah.
to mimic that flavor. Are there any other comfort foods that you have off the top of your head that you can share about that you've changed over to be more healthy but maintain that
Oh
flavor?
yeah.
Yeah. What are
Lots
some other examples?
One that was developed before I got here, which I'm really fond of, is the beef and mushroom sloppy joe.
Okay.
People are shocked when they realize that the ratio of there's a lot of seasoning and stuff we put in it, but it's for each batch it's 12 ounces of lean beef. We get the 90-10. 12 ounces of beef to 16 ounces of mushrooms. So it's much more mushroom than beef. We put the
Very cool.
mushrooms, the cremini mushrooms, in a food processor.
And that kind of mimics the beef texture.
It looks just like ground beef.
Wow.
Looks just like it. It's great. The other one I developed, I did it before I arrived at H3. Actually, I was a personal chef for pro athletes in Charlotte, and a lot of them are, I'm not eating vegetables. So I'm like, yes, you are. You're going to eat vegetables. So
Yeah.
I had to find
It'll
ways.
make you perform better.
That's how I got good at hiding a lot of vegetables, actually.
Had to hide them from athletes.
So one of them was a meatloaf. So we do the turkey meatloaf, which is on our menu right now, and people love it. So it starts with ground turkey, which is lean, and the vegetables are about 50% of that recipe as well. So it's a pound of ground turkey, which is about 2 cups, and we have a cup each of onion, peppers, mushrooms, and a quarter cup of garlic. We puree it, saute it a little bit to give it the color to blend in a little bit more, and mix that in with the veggies, and it really bumps up the nutrition, knocks down the calories, and the flavor of those sauteed vegetables and that meat is fantastic. It's just so rich and deep. And you don't realize that it's coming from vegetables, and it's great.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So did you ever, when you were working with the athletes, did you ever afterwards tell them that the vegetables are?
Yeah.
Did they feel duped or
No,
were they surprised at how good it was?
Yeah. They're like, oh, cool. I eat vegetables.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. They're all really good people.
Yeah.
They wanted. I mean, they turned to me because they wanted to be better.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So they learned to like veggies.
So are there any like common simple like I think I've seen you replace sour cream with Greek yogurt in some things. Like, are there any like just like you could say like this is more of the unwise ingredient, this is kind of a better or best easy swap in most cases? Throwing curveballs at you.
Yeah. Well, certainly salt I like to eliminate with acid.
Okay, so like lemon lime?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Vinegars.
Yep,
they give a nice zip to dishes. Cottage cheese is another good one if you do dairy. And it's, again, a neat trick that we do at H3 that I don't think people think about. They look at cottage cheese and you go, oh, you just eat cottage cheese. You can puree it and make it smooth. And it makes some good sauces.
Ooh.
Yeah. And you get the 1% cottage cheese. And
that's pretty cool.
Put some garlic powder in there, some onion powder, and you can make salad dressings and sauces, and it cooks better than yogurt. So Greek yogurt I like for room temperature or chilled sauces, but the cottage cheese you can cook a little more. So you can make some Alfredo things and stuff like that. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah,
healthy Alfredo.
And again, the flavors and the seasonings.
That's where it all comes in.
The light, low-fat cottage cheese gives that creaminess, and other good substitutions, unwise, better, best. We use butter and heavy cream. We have those, but you control how much you use.
Portions.
Yeah.
People are surprised at how little you need to get the.
Yeah. Very surprised.
Yeah.
And I think especially with the desserts that we make and the portion control on that, and it's like, that's all I needed was just a little bit.
Yeah. And it gets the job done.
Yeah, I'm satisfied.
Yeah.
But
Another popular one I hear guys talk about a lot is that peanut butter hummus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which what is that? Isn't that like garbanzo beans?
Yeah.
And okay.
It's a garbanzo beans. It's some peanut butter, but we cut that with PB2,
Okay.
which is powdered peanut dust. Actually,
Yeah.
they take the fat out of it and grind it up, and it's
Peanut dust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we add water to it to reconstitute that, and a little bit of vanilla, and it's
Good to go.
easy recipe, and
It tastes a lot like peanut butter.
it tastes a lot like peanut butter.
But it's like half the calories or something.
Yeah. Between the beans and the beans have fat, as does the peanut butter, but it's a healthy fat.
Mm-hmm.
So plant oils are all good. But yeah, the beans bring a good dose of protein and fiber.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a healthy little snack.
And some of these recipes, like the peanut butter hummus, I know for sure, but some of these recipes are on our website.
Yes.
Free to the public. So
Yes.
they can, simple one-page recipes.
Yes.
So I do have one last question for you.
Yeah.
So if you could leave our listeners with one tip on cooking and or nutrition, what tip would that be?
Don't be afraid of the kitchen and cooking. I think I encounter a lot of people that they say, I'm afraid of cooking, I'm going to mess things up. And so what? You mess it up, you mess it up. I make mistakes in demos, and I think it's hysterical. It's like, see, I'm trained to do this, and I still mess it up. But hey, we'll all get over it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah. Don't be afraid of the kitchen. It's easy. Make it fun. Don't make it stressful. And a little bit of planning, and you can have a blast in the kitchen.
Don't be afraid of it. Don't take it too seriously.
Yes.
And enjoy it.
And for nutrition, vegetables. Eat lots of vegetables. I mean, it's not hard.
Puree them up, pour them on as a sauce.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. I love that.
Yeah. And season them up and roast them.
Very
delicious.
Cool. Well, Thomas, this has been awesome. One of the reasons that our menu continues to get better is because of your leadership in the kitchen, and I see you working every day, and I know you've been putting together a really solid team, and it's really great to work with you. I'm so happy I got to have you on the podcast. We'll have to have you back on sometime.
Be happy to.
Awesome. Very cool. So thank you all for joining us today. I hope you got a lot of value out of that from Chef Thomas himself. Lots of cool tips and tricks. How to include more fruits, vegetables, and plants overall into your healthy cooking. And not only that, how to enjoy it and be satisfied with it. So let us know what you thought. Comment what questions do you have for me? What questions do you have for Chef Thomas? What else would you like to see on the podcast? Who else would you like to see us talk to on the podcast? Remember, ultimately, this podcast is for you so that you can get maximum value out of listening. So thank you all for joining. We'll see you next time.